I've seen this video on Facebook. A couple people have posted. It's this guy comes home and the kitchen garbage has been dumped all over, and the kitchen's just a disaster area, garbage everywhere. And he goes out and they have three dogs, and he's saying, "Who could have done this?" And the other dogs are sort of dancing around, and there was this other third dog that was sort of in the back on his little bed, I think, and he had the garbage can lid on his head. He'd gotten it on there and couldn't get it off, and he's sitting there, and it's a cute video. Um, and it reminded me of when I was in college. I guess it was 1986, I think. I had Stanley, my dog that I had for years. He was a puppy, and I sort of acquired these other two dogs that were strays that were roaming the neighborhood, and I lived on a really busy street, so I put them in my yard, and they had no tags, nothing, and I don't know, I had them for a short period of time, but it was Christmas time, and I was going to go home to Dallas for a week for Christmas and stay to New Year's. And I had a rent house that I had with roommates and the dogs and cats, and I had a whole menagerie of things. So I asked a friend of mine who lived in Denton, which is where I was going to school, to come over and feed the dogs every day. And they were outside dogs, and it wasn't terribly cold, so it was fine, and they just needed to be fed a couple of times a day, and just check on them and everything. So he said, yes, no problem, I'll do that. I go home for Christmas, come back in a week. I think I may have even come back, I don't know, a day or two early because I wanted to, check on the house and everything. And I opened the door, and I had taken Stanley with me because he was still a puppy. And so, we come back. I open the door, and the house looks like it's been ransacked. I can't even describe, really, in I just can't convey how torn up the house was. It really, it looked like it looked like a tornado blew through. I mean, the pillows were on the floor, holes in the pillows. So there were feathers everywhere because feather pillows had been torn into, and things off the shelves, and just the whole floor in the living room was just crap everywhere. And as I walked in and saw it, I was like, I had no reaction. It's whenever something big happens, something that's completely out of my control like that, or let's say my computer crashes with everything on it, which has happened before, and it's not retrievable. I have no reaction. Because it's like, well, there it is. There it is. I guess it's one of shock. So I start walking through the house, and every room is like that. I walk in the kitchen, and in between the debris all over the house of chewed up, torn things that were in the house were piles of dog shit and puddles of piss in every room. So, I'm walking through the kitchen, and there's a big puddle of pee on the kitchen table. And food that was on the counter is on the floor and empty bags. And I worked my way back to my room, which at this house, my actual bed was really in like a pantry. It was real small because I wanted to take the one-car garage space that had been converted into a room, and that was my studio. And then because I didn't need a big bedroom, I needed the studio space. So, I'm walking back there, and my bed, which was actually a foam sofa, like a love seat that folded down. Did you get a Pier 1? And that was my bed. that was open with the whole center chewed out completely. Just the center of the bed was foam, was completely chewed through to the fabric. And I walk back into the studio, and there's cassette tapes that had been eaten, paint even that had been eaten, and paint brushes and everything. It just, the whole house was eaten by these two dogs that got in the house, because I think what happened was the guy came once to feed the dogs, like the first day maybe, because the amount of shit that was in the house, it was not a 1 or 2 day thing, because each room had several piles. They had been alone in the house at least 4 or 5 days. It had to be, for the amount of poop. It just had to be. And the back door had been sort of pushed in at the bottom. The back door was a terrible back. It was a closet door, really, that they had put on the back door, and it was flimsy, because a closet door typically it's just that little thin piece of wood, and it was hollow. So, and the lock didn't work very well, so I had put a latch over it, and it wasn't secure, really. I mean, anybody could have burst in if they wanted to, and the dogs did. I guess they didn't want to be outside or whatever, or they got hungry because the guy didn't show up. I don't even know if he came, to be honest. He may not have. And they just kind of ate through the back door. I'm sorry, my nose is itching like crazy. And I go to call my roommates to tell them, what had happened, and they had eaten the phone. We had one phone in our house, and it was a cord phone, back in the day. So I had no phone. I walked over to my neighbors who live next door, and I said, I need to call some people. So I called my roommates, and I'm describing the house to them on the phone, and the woman's laughing. She thinks it's funny that they ate the house, because that's what I said. I go, the dogs ate the house. They ate everything, and they had eaten my roommate's pillows. Again, and they were feather pillows, so there was everywhere. It took me like 2 days to clean up. I was livid, and then all the poo. So I called my friend who was supposed to be taking care of the dogs, and I said, "What happened? If you couldn't have taken care of the dogs, you could have called me. I would have come back." "Oh, I took care of them." I said, No, you didn't, because there's no way there would be like 21 poops in the house if you had come by every day. There's just no way. No way at all. And yeah, it really took me 2 days to clean up. It took a long time to get the smell of poo out of the house, and I had to buy pillows for my roommates, and that little bed I slept on was my roommate's. They had given it to me to sleep on, and I had to get rid of that, and I couldn't afford to replace it, and they were like, "That's okay, that's okay." So I had no bed for, well, a long time, really. I slept on the floor, and I never really had a bed after that. Until I graduated, I actually slept on board with cinder blocks and some blankets. Yeah. But, well, part of it was the little room that I was sleeping in was too small for a regular bed. And then secondly, the firmness was fine with me, and, it was just me. So that wasn't really a problem. It's just one of those crazy things where it was very surreal walking in a house like that, because literally the entire house was torn up. They had nothing to do. They got in the house. They like broke in the house, and then they couldn't get back out, is my guess, because once they pushed the door open, it sort of closed back, and then they were stuck in the house. And the guy never came. And I really think they broke in the house because they were hungry. And yeah, they ate potato chips, anything that was on the counter that was anything food related, they got into it. And I'm sure that they were hungry because the bag of food that I had for them, they they ate that probably the first couple days. I would imagine they probably just gorged themselves silly and then shat all over my house. Yeah, it's kind of funny to watch it on video, but it's not funny to actually come home to that. So, I guess the moral of the story is maybe don't take in strays, or if you do, don't leave town, or make sure the person you ask to come feed them is actually reliable. Well, that's my story. Bye.